Welcome to my session for Content Based Scripting as a professional. First of all, if you don't know me, who am I? My name is Ronald from Plas. I'm a husband, father of two. I also have some hobbies. Next to programming, I love to sail, skiing, snowboarding, and play hockey. Not only play it, but also be a referee and a coach of my daughter's team. And next to that, I work at Macaw as a software architect and also as a developer. Still love to dig in the mud with developing. Next to that, I'm a content specialist for 1.5 years now. I've been focusing on the project ever since it came out. And I'm a Sidecar MVP for 2 years in a row now. But let's focus on today's session. If you've seen the session about Sebastian and Leonardo just a moment ago, they talked about the Visual Studio solution. I'm going to do a bit more deep dive into the Visual Studio Code solution and how you can professional your scripting. So before we dive in, let's first take a look at what the scripting looks like in Content Hub. Basically, we have two parts. We have the internal part on the left and the external part on the right. When we look at the internal part, it consists of scripts, actions, triggers, and external page components. And basically, with those 4 things, you can do basically anything that you want within Content Hub. Next to that, we also have some external parts. Basically, we have the REST API that the Content Hub uses itself as well. And next to that, they also provide us with a web client SDK. Unfortunately, it's only available for C#, so if you're a Java developer, then you need to talk directly to the REST API. There's also a more fluent SDK that's also the C# based. And last but not least, you have the JavaScript SDK. Basically, they're all part of the same thing. They're all based on the REST API. And if you want to know more about the session for the external part, I suggest you go to the session of Rob this afternoon. Before we dive any deeper, I just want to have a quote from one of my favorite developers, from Martin Fowler. I think most of you know this one. And if not, you should definitely know this one. You look him up. Basically what he says, any fool can write code that the computer can understand. Good programmers write code that humans can understand. I think that's a really powerful quote because you definitely read code a lot more than you write it. So keep that in mind. So you want to be a professional scripter. We all know development and we all know that guy within your group that always hassles a bit. We can always point them out in your group, but you don't want to be that guy, right? So, what you need to do? Well, first, start behaving like a professional scripter. It starts with taking responsibility. I often use the Boy Scout rule, so when you find code that's a bit messy, don't just do the fix that you need, but also clean it up a bit later. Next to that, write readable code, like I just mentioned. Martin Fowler says so as well. And this is another important one, develop to fail. And make sure that your code fails because eventually it will always fail in the future. So make sure that if your code fails, it fails gracefully. Make sure that you do a try-catch. I once was stupid enough to make a sign-in script within Content Hub. It failed, and then I was unable to sign in the script. I needed to create a support ticket. Took some time, so make sure to gracefully fail in all scripts. And also write unit tests. We all know what the power of unit tests are. Make sure to use them. And almost last, but not least, use the right tooling. Don't start coding in your Notepad++. It looks nice, but in the end, it's a bit crap. And learn by doing. I think programming is a craftsmanship, and you can only evolve and be better if you practice. Look what others are doing and develop yourself. If you're looking at your code, at least when I look at my code from a year back, I always feel a bit ashamed of my code qualities because I've learned something new and better. If you don't have that, I suggest to start learning. But what about scripting in Content Hub? How can you script professionally within Content Hub? At the moment when you look at Content Hub right now, if you do the scripting internally, you are bound by the Content Hub UI. You can basically program in there, but one of the things I found quite frustrating was that you don't have any debugging support. Within Visual Studio Code, you just hit your a debug appointment, you wait until your code hits, and then you can immediately see what goes wrong. That's not possible in the concept UI. I believe they are working on it, but not sure when it will be available. There's also poor IntelliSense. Not sure if you ever tried to do IntelliSense in the concept UI. It doesn't really work. And it also is for the refactoring capabilities. You do have some compiler warnings and errors, luckily, but that only hits after you've compiled, so you need to wait for it to appear. There's also no unit test support, but I think the most important thing of all, you don't have any versioning. So if your colleagues just made a change and so all of a sudden it breaks, you don't have any clue to what has been changed the last time. So yeah, you basically start from top to bottom to do your debugging. You have no clue to what might be wrong. But at least we can fix those points, and I'm going to show you how. First of all, I would like to make a bold statement, and that's stop scripting in Content Hub UI. Don't do that anymore. I will show you why. Like I just mentioned in the first part, you should use the tools we love, and that points out to the following tools. We love our IDE, of course, Visual Studio, we're all familiar with that, or Visual Studio Code, and also some people like to use Rider. And next to that, of course, we have our versioning. Most of us are already based in Git, or otherwise TFS part of that. And next to that, we have, of course, our CI/CD pipelines that we really love today. It makes life a whole lot easier. Within Macaw, we use Azure DevOps a lot, but I think in the near future we'll change to GitHub Actions. And there are also people using the Confluence part, and that's, of course, the Bitbucket pipelines. So how can we integrate all of these tools? Well, luckily for us, Sciencecore developed a small tool that's called Content Hub CLI Tool. And how can it help us then? Well, basically, it's a command line interface tooling that does some important features for us. First of all, you can export your package via a single command line from out the Content Hub. So you can just basically create a backup from your Content Hub configuration locally and then import it in another environment. So that makes syncing your dev, QA, and production environment really easy. Next to that, and that's what we're looking at, it also facilitates editing, compiling, and publishing your script. So basically, with some simple command lines, you can just get your script and change it and upload it again. Basically, Content Hub CLI acts as your proxy between your local development and your Content Hub sandbox. So which commands are the most important ones? At the top, you always need to start with the initialize command. And basically, it sets up your working folder with all the source files that you need before you can start. Next to that, you need to pull your script. So basically, at that moment, you already need to have created a script within the Content Hub. You pull it down, and from that on, you can start making changes. And last but not least, you should activate the watch. What the watch does, it checks if there are any changes in your file, and if those changes have been seen, it will automatically upload your script version, then compiles it and publish it for you. If there are any problems, at that point you get an error in your command line, you can immediately see what goes wrong. So if you look at a small part of it, how does it all look? You start at the above, you open your terminal in your favorite IDE. Then you need to add an endpoint. In this case, you need an endpoint to your sandbox with your credentials and stuff. It then verifies your credentials, and if it succeeds, then you have a connection within your CLI. Then you, of course, need to initialize your working folder so that it's prepped and can run scripts. Next to that, you go into Content Hub, and you get the name of the script. You copy it over in your CLI action, and then you pull it down. And basically at that time, it just copies over the file to your local file system, and you can start making changes. And then you need to activate the watch. At that point, you can just go into your IDE. You open that file, that script file that has just been downloaded. You can start making the changes. You save them. And when you save, the watch is triggered that we did earlier. And then it immediately uploads the file. It compiles it for you and also publishes it. So you don't need to go into the Content Hub. It does that automatically for you, saving a lot of time. So show me the money. In this case, show me the demo. I've prepared a small demo So what you go into Content Hub, you get your script name. As you can see, it's a small script. You go into the CLI, you download the script, wait a bit. Then it appears on the top left. You can then activate the watch because we want to have the changes. You open the script. What I then did is prepared a part and just pulled it in. You save it. The script now is getting updated and is published automatically for you, so you don't need to do any manual changing. And when you press F5 within the Content Hub, you will see the new code. And that makes it a whole lot easier. Another thing that you can do as well, create a unit test script, and you can also run that unit test script from within the same CLI tooling. And then you'll see you've passed or you've failed based on your programming skills. So basically, in a nutshell, this makes our programming a whole lot easier and also a bit more safe because you have the debugging options now. You can do the debugging within your Visual Studio Code. You can set breakpoints, run your unit test, and see if everything works fine as expected. Of course, you need to test your script within Content Hub because you're mocking all your dependencies. And yeah, if you make a wrong assumption that something is filled in and it does not work in Content Hub, you will see so. One of the most important things that you need to do is always start with a try-catch, basically, so that you surely know that your script doesn't fail. And if it fails, you know it because you've seen it, and you don't block any activities like a sign-in script that needs to be deactivated. If you ever come into the problem, luckily the CLI also will allow you to deactivate the script, so that will save you a support call to Content Hub. What I also want to show you, I've created also a small Content Hub Chrome extension. So if you're interested in that, just look for a Content Hub Chrome extension, then you can definitely find it. What it will do, it will save you a lot of clicking each day in the Content Hub. I find it very useful, and the people that have downloaded it as well like it. That's the end of my script. Are there any questions at the moment?
So my question is whether the watch can detect that you have changed something before you run the watch command, or you have to run it, make changes, and then it detects and pushes.
You need to activate it first, because if you made, say, if you have changed the document and then hit save before the watch was activated, it doesn't see it. So you need to activate it basically immediately, and then hit save, and then it automatically detects it.
And is there a push command, or only the watch to synchronize script with Content Hub?
So basically what it does, it takes your code, it pushes it, it writes it over to the existing script within the Content Hub, and then it compiles and publishes it to watch.
Yes, so what I'm thinking about is whether we can just, test the script using the .NET SDK, run it, debug it, whatever.
You can do that, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then without watching, just pushing them after the development's done.
Yeah, currently it doesn't does so, but if you just are quite handy with Visual Studio Code, you can create your own plugin and then have that functionality in there if you want.
Okay, cool, thank you. By the way, the extension to browser is really good.
I'm using it.
Is that like a washer that we have in bulk or current? Washes and then device?
Yeah, basically, your question, can you repeat?
I mean, I'm extending this question. So it's like a gulp task runner that you have, and when you modify anything, it publishes directly after authentication. So that's your idea, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, when you hit save on that file, it changes the file, and the watcher activates, and then it goes into action.
Okay, cool. That's a good one. Thank you.
Thanks.